Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Figure It Outcast. This is for March 2017. I'm Adam Koralik, and I'm joined by my co-star, Chip Senkbeil. Chip, what's up, man?
Hey, happy March.
Thank you. There's so much excitement in March.
So much excitement. March Madness, man.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's basketball. Yes. You would think I'd be excited, but I never liked college basketball. I'm always been totally NBA centric.
Oh well.
Yeah. Aside from that, what else is going on with you, dude?
Ooh, I am very busy, so I'll be flying out. So technically, here's a spoiler: it's not actually March for us yet.
He's giving away the secrets.
I know, you away all the secrets, but yeah. So I'm actually flying out to Poland in 2 days, and I'll be out there for almost a week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm giving a talk, so that'll be fun. And it's on developer tooling and that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, I've been doing all of this work. I'm holding up papers in front of my face right now, to do with Laplacian pyramids and Gaussian pyramids and other stuff to do with my grad school work, which is time-consuming, but interesting.
Dude, I'm jealous. Poland's fun, man. I've been there twice. That is a cool place.
Yeah, or no pun intended, right? It's going to be in the 40s when I get there.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, but
yeah, bring a jacket or something.
Oh yeah, no, I've got plenty.
You're gonna be further south than I've ever been. I've only ever been briefly to Warsaw and usually up in Gdansk, which is like right up on the Baltic Sea.
Okay.
You're gonna be in like southern Poland, right?
Yeah, it's wherever Krakow, Poland is, which I think is the southern.
Yeah, Krakow.
Part
Well,
of
I
Poland.
wasn't saying the city because I didn't know if you wanted people to know.
Oh, I don't care.
Oh, okay. Everybody's gonna be in Krakow. Go.
You won't be able to get to me anyway. I'll be at conferences all day.
Actually, by the time this is public, you'll be back in the States. So.
That's very true.
Only Patreon backers got to hear this early, so if you're a
Yeah.
Patreon backer in Poland, you could potentially meet Chip. Anyway, but yeah, I'm jealous, man. Poland's fun. I like that place.
Yeah, so what have you been up to?
Just work and stuff, making videos, all that kind of stuff. No crazy exciting travel plans for me lately. This is kind of the dry season for that, so yeah.
Oh, it's a relaxation period, right?
No, because you just do the actual work part of the year.
Oh, boo.
Yeah, I know. I'll definitely be having things coming up. Like, I know I'm going to Winnipeg for FanQuest as a convention in Canada in May. Probably gonna be at Too Many Games in Philadelphia in June, and there's all the possibles, and then I think I'll be in St. Louis in August for a convention.
Sure.
Those are the ones I know of, and then there's some tentative ones, so we will see. But yes, all right. Why don't we'll just get on with it here and start talking about the big news this month that everyone has obviously talked about, including us. But now that it's really relevant. The Nintendo Switch, at the time you guys are all hearing this, it is out. It is finally out, and people have their hands on it.
Well, some people have their hands on it, right?
Yes. Now, all right, so you have to understand, we're recording this at the very end of February, so we haven't actually got to use it yet. I almost did, which I'll tell that story in a minute. But I'm assuming that most people, the reviews have been relatively positive thus far, at least the early reviews that we've seen. So I would, of course, like to see in the comments people's reaction to the Switch. If you guys are liking it, enjoying it, who has it. But I guess in a weird way, we can kind of play the guessing game and see if we're going to be right or wrong. Like with availability, for example. How hard do you think it is to get a Switch? And will those crazy people from the future, 1 month from now, look at us like morons for getting this wrong?
Yeah.
What do you think?
It feels like Nintendo is doing exactly what they did with the Wii, which is they are dishing out a short supply of these things, right? But it's hard to say. Maybe my speculation is at least the first 2 months it'll be difficult to get one. From there, it depends on, are they trying to pull another Wii where they have short supplies, like sending 3 to a store? Or is it just literally that there are that many people excited that they just sold out of a large quantity early on and then they'll have more later, right?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, again, this is massively outdated information by the time you guys are hearing this, but like I was scoping out Polygon today, and they had a thing where GameStop was saying, if you want a Switch, just walk in day one, we'll have them. And that's a pretty confident statement to make.
Yeah, I don't know if I really believe them for that.
Yeah, me neither. And I wonder what. All right, so like this is kind of jumping ahead here. One of our subjects. I'll just jump ahead. Why not? One of the subjects specifically was going to be that I thought Nintendo's doing a pretty good job with advertising this console, and as opposed to like the Wii U, where they really didn't do that. They really didn't advertise that console. People thought it was just an add-on for the Wii if they even knew it existed. And Nintendo's doing a good job getting their name out there and stuff. And I can't help but wonder if we're kind of, as you mentioned, kind of retreading original Wii territory, where they're kind of getting everybody excited about something that perhaps is actually not that good. I guess what I'm asking you is, do you think we're repeating the Wii or repeating the Wii U, or just taking the best of both parts?
I mean, I haven't gotten the vibe from the Switch, from everyone that has gotten early access to it, through those events they've had in New York and other places.
Oh, we're going to get back to that in a minute, I promise you.
Okay. So I haven't heard anything bad there, so I would think it'd be right now it feels like it's going to be the mixture of the two, where you're going to get you actually enjoy playing the games of the Wii U, but I feel like it's going to be one of those hard to get for a while, like the Wii, but also well advertised like the Wii, right?
I would hope that's the combination we're going to get. I want it to be successful, but on the contingency that I actually enjoy it. Like the thing with the Wii was that it was wildly successful, but I absolutely hated it. And the amount of damage it did to Nintendo overall, not financially, it obviously made them money, but just like to their brand recognition and like everything they stood for, it did a lot of social damage to them. And I just don't want the Switch to do that. I want the Switch to be good. I don't want it to be a home for endless amounts of shovelware.
It's odd because the Wii at the time, Nintendo was really trying to push the whole, hey, we're like a children's game system, game company kind of deal, right? Mm-hmm. Casual, obviously.
I'd say they weren't just casual; they were going family. Like,
right,
your grandmother is going to want a Wii,
sure.
And they weren't even wrong about that. Like, my aunts all wanted it, and I'm like, you don't even know what a Nintendo is. Like, why do you want this thing? So Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I really don't want them to go in that direction again.
Right, but I was trying to think of, okay, so they did that with the Wii. The Wii U, they tried to backpedal and say, oh, no, it's for the gamers, the more hardcore gamers, people that like games for not really the casual social element, more of the game mechanics, game storyline elements, right? Mm-hmm. But it feels like with the Switch, it's almost a nostalgia throwback in some ways. Mm-hmm. A lot of people that have spoken about the Switch around me are actually people that are in their 30s and 40s, which is kind of weird. They seem to be more interested in the Switch than, say, my younger, early 20s coworkers, right? At least for the time being. And I don't know exactly what about the Switch has gotten the older generation more excited, but it's kind of odd to see it go from the Wii is marketed towards the family, and then the younger generation. The Wii U is supposed to be towards the late 20s, early 30s, maybe. The Wii U, that is, and then the Switch is like, well, who is their target? I know their little advertisement commercial was what age group was it?
It was kind of like early 30s. It was basically people our age.
Right, and so it feels like that's what the Switch is hitting. Maybe a little bit older as well as some of the other coworkers I have that are interested, although it's an odd blend because it's almost like they're trying to still say, hey, you can have a good social experience with the Switch. Why play basketball when you can play basketball on the Switch?
Yeah, that was hilarious. But
yeah, it was pretty silly.
Like, there's no way I love basketball, as we mentioned before. There's no way a bunch of, like, actual guys who are going to go out and play basketball are going to be like, we're out in the court, but, oh, fuck it. We've got 4 Switches for somehow. Yeah. Let's just play that. Like, that's a ridiculous scenario that only could exist in a commercial.
Oh, sure. No.
Next thing, I'm just expecting them to bust out some Sunny D. That's just, it doesn't, whatever. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
It was absurd, but it caught your attention as well. But it feels like they're trying to bridge the gap between the two a little bit. Because you have to admit, if you target too intensely the hardcore gamer, that user base isn't actually that big.
Agreed. That's the Last Guardian user base, like where we all were like, oh, us. Usually the people who'd listen to something like this are in that group.
Right.
Where it's just people who are really, really excited about video games, but the reality is we don't make up the majority of them. And so when we're really passionate about a game and shall we say the mass audiences aren't, it really doesn't sell all that well.
Exactly. So unless it didn't cost that much to produce, it's harder to say, oh, my way of thinking and my group, the hardcore gamers, if we like something the most, it should be the one that that makes the decision. Unfortunately, that's not how the world works.
Yeah.
And it feels like Nintendo is trying to still keep part of the Wii U crowd, or at least the crowd they're targeting, but also kind of dial back a little bit and make it more accessible still.
The thing, all right, so the original Wii obviously appealed to everyone but gamers. That's what it was marketed as. It was just a family thing. If you were a gamer, you were into the Wii, that's fine. You were just, a rarity. That was not how it usually went.
Yeah, I like the Wii, so there you go.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't, but to each their own. But the original, but then the Wii U, they tried to do that again, but it didn't work. That casual audience had moved on, and then they only had the hardcores that weren't upset with them for being alienated, people like me. And that's why the Wii U didn't actually do all that well. And later during the Wii U, they kind of shifted and said, hey, our console's actually pretty good. Why don't you come back to us? But that was just kind of like to pivot. That wasn't really the intention. So the Switch, as I think you mentioned, is just kind of trying to do the best of all worlds and trying to make everybody happy. And hopefully it has succeeded at that. Because I would love it if it was a great game console.
I would too, yeah.
Yeah.
It has some good party games, but it has some good single-player games as well. That would be a nice balance for me.
Now, I forget, or maybe you've changed your mind since. I kind of remember you saying you weren't planning on getting one right away. Has that changed for you?
No, it hasn't changed. I'm still too busy to get one day one, even if I could, right? I'll stick with what I've got, which is plenty. Mm-hmm. And, I may try to get one, say, which I'm sure this will be a rejuvenation for the system by that point, when, say, the Mario game comes out, right?
Yeah. Next December, I think.
Right, yeah. So a point, it's going to be a little ways in the future where where the system has some games I want to play, right?
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, why would I get one? I don't need one. I have such a bag. You and I both. We have such huge back catalogs of games to play that we'll never have time to play. Like, I couldn't finish all the games that I have on my list to play if I lived twice as long as I would today with modern medicine, right? So
yeah, we literally own more games than we have enough time on Earth to play. Yes.
Yeah. Even if I was able to quit my job and play games now, I probably would not finish everything in the way that I would want to. Complete, mm-hmm. not just quickly running through them to check them off a list.
Yeah. Thoroughly play them. Yes.
Correct.
It's interesting because the Switch seems like it could possibly be like the most perfect console for you.
Yeah, it could be. It's just one of those things where I have a lot of other stuff going on, so I don't really... This kind of sounds odd considering how I'm on a gaming podcast, but I don't have the time to game at the moment.
I can relate very hardcore to that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, well, I'll get one, and I'll probably enjoy playing it, but I need to actually get one when I have time to play games in the first place. So.
Yeah. Now... this wasn't on my subject list, but I'm going to throw it out there, and I think this is a good one for Corey Marsh. You remember Corey Marsh? He's a wonderful Patreon backer, and I don't know why, but I think this is the kind of he unfortunately didn't come up with a subject for me, so I'm picking this on his behalf. But this seems like something he would ask. So, do you think, because of how Nintendo operates traditionally with their handheld lines, when they're successful, like DS, they did DSi, DS Lite, all that stuff, do you think it's kind of inevitable that if the Switch is successful, that we'll see the same type of thing with the Switch, where they come up with a slightly different one every year or so that has like a bigger camera or some shit that suddenly can only play different games that didn't work on the previous ones?
So...
Because I'll put it out there that if the Switch is not successful... like the Wii U, they won't do that. But if it is successful, they will.
I think it depends. I think so. Okay, so let's go through let's go with just the DS and its iterations, right? So you had the original DS, the really fat one that had the backwards compatibility with the Game Boy Advance. You could put in Game Boy Advance cartridges in the bottom. Mm-hmm. From there, I can't remember if they made a version that phased out the Game Boy Advance part yet, but then
I think there was I don't have the information in front of me, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the next one was DS Lite, and it also had backwards compatibility with Game Boy Advance hardware.
Right.
And then they started doing DSi.
Yes, they had the DSi, and believe it or not, there were a couple of games that required it. I actually own one, and I used to own a DSi a long time ago. I gave that away to a friend. it was more gimmicky. They experimented with the whole camera aspect. I can't remember if that was when the augmented reality stuff kind of came into play, or if they added that in the 3DS. But
yeah, I'm not sure.
At some point, they had these cards you could put down to kind of give a base to kind of do all the figures that you'd see through the camera. So I remember that, but I had like a game. I think it's like some sort of Pokemon game, not actually Pokemon, but in the style or spirit of Pokemon. But you required a camera, so you take pictures of things and it would give you new monsters. But it was pretty small in terms of content. So yeah, so then they moved from the DSi, which was the first DS version that had games that you required that new version of hardware. Because the DS Lite that I'm aware of didn't have any games that required DS Lite. It was just another DS, right?
As far as I know.
Yeah.
You're really more the handheld guy than I am.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think there was a game that required the DS Lite. So I think it was DS and DS Lite. Then you had the DSi that actually had a couple of games that required it. And of course you had the 3DS, which had, of course, 3DS games that it could play. And I don't think there was anything until they had the new 3DS, and there were only a handful.
There was the 3DS XL.
Right, but I'm talking about systems where
there's like a new piece of tech.
A new piece of tech, and actually had games that require the new piece of tech. Right?
Wasn't there all right, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a version of the 3DS, like 3DS XL, or maybe it was a 2DS, where it had the second thumbstick that was required for some games?
If that's the case, I don't know. But the thing is, I really don't count that one entirely, because even if that's the case, I think there's like some extension you could get to add. It's like the Circle Pad Pro or something you could get to add.
Yeah, and I remember that being a kind of a big deal because it didn't fit on the bigger ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never owned one of the bigger DSs or 3DSs. So
yeah, again, guys, I'm not the handheld expert, so like I'm kind of operating off of memory. I've got nothing in front of me.
Hey, we're both memory. We don't have anything in front of us.
Basically, I think the point we're both laboring to make is Nintendo has a history of doing this with successful devices.
Right, but the reason I've actually brought these up was because they had... It wasn't just, hey, let's make new hardware that's faster. Other than, I guess, the new 3DS, that's the first time they've done this. The other versions had a gimmick they had added to the hardware, which is why you required new games. The DSi had a camera. The 3DS had the whole 3D aspect to the games that was built in, right? It wasn't until the new 3DS where I don't believe there's anything really like in terms of a new feature. It wasn't just better performance, like a refreshed version of the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm kind of getting at is, while Nintendo's had a history of doing this with the handhelds, the majority of the time, except for the new 3DS, you only had to get games for the new system if they required the new feature. And I don't know what kind of feature Nintendo would add to the Switch to suddenly require you to get the new version of the hardware to be able to play new Switch games, right?
Yes, as of March 2017 at the launch of the console, yes, we don't know that.
Right.
But, I mean, give it a year and who knows.
Sure, and once again, the new 3DS, I don't have one, so I don't know what's different about it. I'm assuming it has better specs inside. But that's the first time.
All I think it has a bigger color palette and some other extra stuff under the hood.
Right, so, I mean, maybe the color palette can help or something if it's a specific screen, but regardless, it's not like a new feature, it's just more of like an upgrade to the system, but actually some games are requiring it. So, that's the first time that I've seen Nintendo do that, where they've had a new version of a system, and it's not added a new kind of gimmick or feature. It's just been an upgrade, and they've actually required some games that started requiring the upgrade, right? So maybe that's just the trend for the Switch to do that, but that's the only time I've seen the Switch or I've seen Nintendo do that with the system.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Okay, so the 3DS did do that, and now the PS4 Pro and Xbox Scorpio look inevitably like they will do that. So is it not unheard of or impossible that there will be? I've even heard rumblings about it myself already that this Nintendo might already be gearing up for some other version of the Switch to do this, because as it stands, the original now launch version of the Switch is essentially just a hair under what the launch Xbox One is. So at least as far as gaming capabilities, and so it's possible that you'll see a new Switch, within a year or maybe even this year. Who knows?
Yeah, if they do it this year, it's a mistake. It's too.
Oh, I agree
soon. Nintendo has to try to fine line. Sure, they don't need to have the most powerful console. You've done a video about that. Like they've pretty much never had the most powerful console except for the Super Nintendo, I think.
Technically, the Neo Geo AES, but it's hard to even really count that since it wasn't ever the dominant console. But
got it.
Yeah, but that's a whole different subject. But yeah.
Yeah, so I forgot what I was talking about now.
Nintendo has always been competitive with hardware, but they've never really tried to have the most advanced piece of tech.
That's right.
Let's put it that way.
Right, and so they still need to stay relevant. If they go too far off the map, or too far behind, they will make it too difficult for developers of any kind to stick around, and I think they realize that.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm worried about the Switch in a lot of ways. I assume at this point in time, in March 2017, it's been selling decently enough. It's probably hard to get your hands on. But you think down the line, most of its third-party support will probably be very similar to what the Wii U's initial third-party support was, which was a lot of developers who were just taking late 7th gen ports, Xbox 360 and PS3 games, and putting them on the Wii U because it was very similar. And I can't help but wonder if most of the games the Switch gets from third-party developers is going to be kind of the same thing. It's going to be like really early Xbox One and PS4 titles just kind of ported over. And then if support isn't there, they'll just kind of say, fuck it, and not keep trying.
Yeah, that could easily happen. I'm hoping it doesn't. Obviously, no one really wants that to happen. But I do know that Nintendo's... they made a bunch of policy changes last year in terms of... allowing developers to work with their consoles, right? Like they opened up their development program to be much more available to both the 3DS and the Wii U at the time. This is before they kind of just dropped the Wii U. So they're definitely trying to make developing on their consoles more approachable. I think they just have to... I almost feel like they have to get lucky. They have to get lucky and have a couple of big names try something new. Try something new, not just port old stuff over to their console and have it do well enough for the companies to say, you know what, we'll try another thing, right? And kind of bring them back in. But it's one of those catch-22s. You need to get in the big name companies to make third-party games, but those companies won't come in until big third-party games come on the system. So it's like you need the companies to already be willing to do it to bring more companies on board, but no companies are on board to do it, so no new companies will come on board. So
yeah, there's another kind of catch-22 to that, and I was just thinking about this. Like, so we kind of are saying we'd love for it to kind of have the success of the Wii without kind of the crap association with it. And so the Wii, a lot of developers wanted to work on it because it was, like you said, it was successful, and so a lot of people wanted to get in there. But they had made it too easy for developers to get in there, so they had very poor quality control, which is why you had so many horrible games on that console. So then they made it harder, to try and get away from that, and that was one of the reasons the Wii U's quality of content was quite solid, but another part of the reason that you didn't have that many third-party titles. Now that they've started to ease restrictions, and you noticed it towards the end of the Wii U, where most of the physical Wii U games coming out were basically all third-party indie titles that really had no business even getting physical releases. You have to wonder if that same policy applies, and if the Switch is successful, if we're just going to see a shit ton of shovelware. It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, like, no matter what you do. It's got to be really frustrating to try and make a game console.
Yeah, I'd imagine it is pretty frustrating, especially for Nintendo, right? But I imagine any of the console producers, the constant battle you have to try to get game developers to make new games for your system when the PC platform is becoming more and more appealing as just develop there, right? Because you're reaching more people with each year. You have obviously you can develop games that require specs that are way out of the league of consoles, that kind of thing. So it requires developers to now have to try to figure out how to squeeze out something that looks remotely like the game would look on PC, but on the Xbox One or the PS4 or the Switch. It probably definitely makes it more and more of it challenging for the developers to accomplish that.
Oh, definitely. But yeah, I keep thinking more about like the Wii U and like how its final days are very telling of Nintendo's change of heart as far as like indies go. And so we're basically almost out of Wii U titles entirely. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild now at the time we record this, it is out. for the Wii U. And the only other one that's still coming is there was a game called Axiom that was announced that's going to come out in like friggin' September. Oddly enough, and then possibly Darksiders remastered or something. I think is still supposed to come out. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of switching this into like buy Wii U. We hardly knew ye. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just it's weird to me how Nintendo really is dropping that like a dirty shirt, like completely. Like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is like the only acknowledgement that they even seem to have had that console.
Yeah, it's weird because it kind of feels like when the Xbox 360 came out, right? When Microsoft did the Xbox, they kind of just tried to push it away.
Dude, they buried it. Yeah, but I think Nintendo might actually be worse in that regard, because at least was the last original Xbox game was Madden 2009, so it came out in 2008, and granted that was a sports title, but I mean that lasted all the way till 2008. The Xbox 360 came out in 2005. So I get what I'm saying is I guarantee you in 3 years we are not going to see another Wii U title.
Yeah, I believe it.
I would be astonished if a Wii U title came out in 2018 at all, any single one. The only one I could think of that might be like Bloodstained, and that was only because the Kickstarter, it was like the Castlevania spiritual successor. Supposed to come out then, and they were supposedly doing a Wii U version. That's the only one I could see possibly happening just for that reason. But aside from that, no way. So it's possible that's open for debate. Is the Wii U the most dropped of any major console ever?
Could be.
I don't
know.
Maybe we'll talk about that later. But yeah, so Corey, thank you for that particular subject. Even though it wasn't exactly your intention, I still think that's probably one you would have liked.
The spirit of Corey approves.
Yes, I'm sure he does. But we still have a lot more stuff to say on the Switch. So one thing, all right. First of all, have you actually seen a Switch game in person, or at least online? Just a photo? Like,
no,
yeah, okay.
Nope.
So they are incredibly small. Like the little cards. They're like around the size of an American penny.
Really?
They're very tiny.
They're smaller than the 3DS cards?
I don't have one in front of me to compare, but based on photos I've seen, I will have one in my hands within a couple of days from the time we record this. But the reason it's small it's not a problem that it's small. The problem is that how much space their cases apparently take up. They're almost like PSP cases, but they are basically holding a single SD card. And so it's an odd choice, because you open it up and you look at it and you see there's just a ton of wasted space and still no manual anyway.
Wait, there's no manual on these anymore?
Apparently not.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, again, at the time we're recording this, the only people who've had these are like early releases. Like my buddy Shane, aka Rerez TV, Nintendo of Canada sent him one like a week ago. I'm jealous. But yeah, I've seen photos online and stuff, and nobody is. I haven't seen one with a manual yet, and it's just a big acknowledgement of how much space those cases take up. And it's just kind of weird. You would think if they're going to go for physical media, which I'm happy with, that they would have maybe made more like Vita style cases, smaller ones that take up less space. But I guess they're taller, almost like full DVD cases, more like PSP cases.
Well, I wonder if it'll be like what system was it? The PlayStation where they had originally had really large cases on the PlayStation, and they went down to the jewel cases.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they'll do that, where the first couple of games will be out on these large cases, and then as they realize they don't need to make cases that big, especially with no manual, they'll shrink down, right?
Yeah, I would hope so. That'd be nice. All right, so continuing with the Switch, I have one other thing to say before we move on here. So you haven't played a Switch yet?
Nope.
Okay, now you remember before you mentioned events in like New York and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they had an event for the Switch in Chicago, where I live. So I was like, oh shit, I'm totally going to go to that. And then I will have something to say about playing the Switch. How great will it be? And it'll be fun to have enjoyed the Switch. So Nintendo, if you guys aren't aware, before the console came out, did media events in New York City, San Francisco, Chicago, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., like, the super cities, like the ones that are like really, really populated. Like Chicago is a city of 4 million people, and that doesn't include the suburbs, so it's like you can get up to around 7 million people, I think, in Cook County alone. And so you're thinking about that, and you're going, okay, these events must have tons of people that are allowed in, right? So I go there, and the event starts at 10 a.m. My intention was to get up at 6 a.m. and be there by 7. I just figured there would be a line, and that was my plan. My alarm clock did not bother to go off. Thanks a lot. So I didn't wake up until like 8:30. So I got myself together, headed over there, and I was there by like 9:30. And by the time I got there, they were like, yeah, you can just leave. There's that line, but we only are allowing a total of 750 people in for the entire day in 3 sessions. And they were like 250 people per session. So it's a grand total of 750 people. And the only way you got in is if you had you'd waited in a line and got a wrist thing, which I presumably would have got if my alarm clock had actually, gone off. But the reason that pissed me off was, why in the world would you host it in super cities and then limit it to the amount of people that would show up if you hosted it in like Butte, Montana?
Publicity, man. It's totally publicity.
Yeah, but the people can't get in anyway.
Well, that's not the publicity I'm talking about. It's the fact that people want what they can't have or what they can't.
Yeah, that
get.
part I get. Yeah.
So obviously, if they make it where only this many people can come in, the people that didn't get in, I'm like, why? I've got to. Now I really need to do it, right? We talked about this, I think, last time about the whole U.S. mentality of really got to have what you can't get, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to cause people in these super cities to really, even more so want to get a Switch. And how they get it now? By buying one. And for those that are not in super city, well, I mean, I think you would hear more in the news, or at least lasting longer in the news, about an event being held in Chicago for the Switch than you would, say, someplace in Alabama or something, like someplace where people are like, wait, what? Why was it there? And then you don't even have enough people to show up in the first place.
Potentially, yes, but it's just the part that annoyed me is you get there. So I'm still there at around 10 a.m. and that's when most, shall we say, if we're appealing to mass market people and not just hardcore gamers, then the majority of people who are there to try it out show up at 10 because they're not really familiar with how the gaming industry and that kind of stuff works. So you have nothing but little kids and their parents who clearly were forced to drag them there, coming from all parts of the city, out in the suburbs and everything, showing up just to be immediately turned away. I felt bad for those kids. There was a lot of crying kids.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's great what they did. I'm just kind of saying why they would have done this if they had to do it, that specific thing, which is limited to 750 people. Why they do it in a super city as opposed to some obscure city, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, here's the thing. I've been to a lot of media press events for companies like 2K and Ubisoft and stuff like that. I get why you keep those things small, but those are private events. You don't declare it open to the public and then, oh, by the way, if you weren't here 3 hours before we told you to be here, you can't get in.
Yeah, it's a shame they didn't have some sort of ticket system.
They did, but they did it on the spot.
Yeah, on the spot is the problem. If you could have done it in advance, you would have known in advance you could go in or not, right? Mm-hmm. That would have been better. But
okay, so also really what annoyed me about it was you check their website and it never says that audience is limited to 750 people capacity. It never says that. It just seems to imply if you show up, you can play it. Which was if you had mentioned on there, by the way, this is how it's actually going to work. Fine. You gave people the warning. They chose to come. But you didn't tell people that part. So you just had literally thousands of people who were there at the time of the beginning thinking they're going to just have to maybe wait in a line for a bit and try it. But nope. Fuck off. Leave.
Yeah.
I'm complaining about Nintendo's policy towards event staff, I guess, is work on that part. That's all.
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I got over it. I took the train down there. I took the train right back. It's no big deal. And I'm going to get one, or at least now, at the time you guys are hearing this, I have one, I'm sure, and I'm sure it's great, unless it didn't show up or something, in which case I'm pissed off. But Best Buy just sent me a notification saying they were starting to pack it up, so I'm sure it'll be here soon enough. So, I'm excited to try it. It would have been nice to do that beforehand, but that was my one attempt to really try and play the Switch. And a bunch of my friends have now played it, YouTube friends specifically. Like I said, my buddy Shane actually has one. And since we're recording this still late February, that's quite impressive. But he hasn't said much about it because I'm sure there's all sorts of NDAs. But he made it public that he had one, so it's not like I'm outing him here. But so I'm very curious to try it, and hopefully, actually, I'm sure I already did an unboxing and stuff, so this is all probably out of date information.
It sounds like you should release this early. It's just like a surprise March gift.
Surprise! Well, no,
Yeah.
Patreon backers get it right away, but you know how it goes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else you would like to say about the Switch?
The only other thing I've heard, which I've not seen the Switch itself or the UI, but people keep saying that the UI reminds them of Android for some reason.
It wouldn't surprise. Is it some iteration of Android?
I have no idea. I don't know if it's something custom or if they just, modified Android or built on top of Android.
That's a tough one because Android would, theoretically it'd be a lot cheaper and it's obviously easier to work with and all that stuff. But Nintendo seems to like to do their own thing.
Yeah, the only reason that I would think it could be related to Android would be they have that NVIDIA Tegra card in there, right?
Oh yeah.
And that plays pretty well with Android, so that if maybe that has a hand in that, but I don't really know.
I wonder, because you would think Nintendo would be kind of afraid to do something like that, because I would assume if it is Android-based, that probably could be cracked relatively easily.
Yeah, that's true.
So it doesn't seem like something Nintendo would want to do, but Nintendo has always had a history of having their handhelds get cracked real easy.
Yeah, I mean, they keep patching them, with each update, they patch it to try to prevent the cracks and getting in, but once you were in, you were safe, typically.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me, because we kind of keep harping back around to the Wii U. So did you know the Wii U, I haven't done this myself, but I have looked into it out of just morbid curiosity. So the Wii U is actually very easy to crack now.
Huh.
And as per usual, you would think, oh, okay, they're going to do like system updates and lock people out and all that. Did you know the last update the Wii U had was in January of 2016?
I think you mentioned that before, but I had forgotten it was that far back.
Yeah, and I think it's 5.5.0. And that has been cracked for a really long time. And, like, that shows you how little Nintendo gives a fuck about that console anymore.
Oh, yeah.
That they have, like, it's everyone, like, there's tons of, I mean, I guess I'm just advertising this now. There's tons of YouTube videos out there explaining how to crack your Wii U. And, like, once you do, it's not even that hard. And once you do it, like, you have all these insane benefits to it. And you would think they would have patched that out, but it seems like they just don't care at all.
Yeah, they've definitely dropped it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so I'm kind of considering getting a sacrificial Wii U and doing that with it. But Wii U's, man, I'm telling you, Wii U's are going to be hard to get down the line.
Yeah, I still got a boxed Wii U sitting here somewhere.
Nice. There are some Wii U games already that are like completely out of control, like Hello Kitty Racing or whatever. That was a $20 game at one point when it came out. Did you know there are, I'm not even kidding about this. Go look it up if you want. At least the time that we're recording this. There are copies of that game selling for $500.
Wow.
The U.S. copy. The European copy doesn't seem to be worth anything for some reason, but the North American copy seems to be like out of control. Now, I got it a long time ago, because I had to be on top of things.
Yeah.
But when I started seeing it selling for that, I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Super Smash Brothers to get down so I can get that one.
Yeah, that's a good title, of course. But it just further evidence. I've been saying it for a while, man. Wii U collections, people are going to go nuts for that at some point. It's already starting to get there. It looks like. So, good luck to you, Wii U collectors. Hopefully you already have that hopefully you already have Hello Kitty. Otherwise, that's going to hurt. Yeah, I think the second Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, like the Rio Olympics, is already getting hard to find too. Oh. There's odd ones in there that are just like, oh, I didn't even know that ever came out. Oh, that one got recalled for whatever reason. Oh, that only had one pressing. So anyway, thank you. Let's move on. So I got a shout out to do here. We got a shout out to Colin. Colin's of course a Patreon backer, and every single month he has been around and he gets a shout out for that purpose. So thank you, Colin. You are a boss.
Boss Colin.
Yeah. He's kind of like, I think I might have said this before, but he's kind of like Sinbad. He just has one word. He's just Colin.
Just Colin.
He doesn't even need a last name. And I mean, when I brought up Colin, were you aware that this was the same Colin we've been talking about for like a year?
I never forget Colin. Colin's amazing.
How could you? That's my point. How could you forget? Because it's just Colin.
It's just Colin.
You always know. It's just Colin. All right. Thank you, Colin. Okay, so I wanted to talk about, since we've talked a lot about Nintendo and a lot about video games and stuff, I thought it'd be kind of refreshing to try and talk about not video games for a little bit. I was thinking we could talk a little bit like movies or TV here for a bit and see how that goes. So this might be old news, but at the time I see this, it was kind of like a buried story. It wasn't even like it wasn't really popping out there. Have you ever seen the Hellboy movies?
The live action ones?
Yeah, with Ron Perlman as Hellboy.
Yeah, I've seen them.
All right. What did you ever think of them?
They weren't bad. I actually liked them for what they were.
Did you ever want a third one?
Why, yes, a third one would have been nice.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, today, anyway, that we are recording this, Guillermo del Toro, the filmmaker, the director behind the first two, has officially said it is done. All hope of that ever happening is officially over and canceled.
This
we
is
should all go
disappointing.
cry. Yeah, I don't know exactly how that came to be, but it seemed like they had some sort of unified meeting with a bunch of people who would make that call, and like including Ron Perlman, and a bunch of them just said like, no, that's it. Last nail in the coffin happened today. Whatever it was, something did it, and we'll never see a third Hellboy, which is really too bad.
Who owns the rights to Hellboy?
I'm honestly not sure. I thought for a while it was over at Lionsgate, but I don't know. That could be part of the problem. I don't have that information. Hellboy's interesting because he's kind of, at least the movie version of him, is kind of like a weird remnant of the pre-Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, I know he was never part of that. He's not even a Marvel character. But there was just a series of comic book movies there from, like, the first X-Men until Iron Man, where it was just like, I don't know, these are just random comic book movies from random characters. Like Daredevil and, like, the first Ang Lee Hulk and the first three Spider-Mans with Tobey Maguire and Superman Returns. Just this weird era of comic book movies where mostly you didn't really care if they ever brought him back, but Hellboy was kind of an exception where you actually wanted to keep that specific version of Hellboy going. Mm-hmm. Like, same with, the Punisher. As much as I loved that first Punisher movie, even though everyone seems to hate it, the Tom Jane one, I always wanted to see another one of those, but they never did that with him anyway. They did that shitty Punisher Warzone movie.
Never saw it.
Oh, did you see the first one?
No, I've not seen any of the Punisher.
Okay,
movies.
So I love that first Punisher movie, though I realize I'm in the minority on that. The guy who played it, actor, is named Tom Jane, and he loved playing that character so much that he was so dedicated to a sequel, he intentionally didn't do any movies for years. He was like, I just want you guys to get the script right. I want to make sure my schedule is completely available. We got to do this movie. And he just kind of sat on it, just waiting and waiting and waiting. Then they gave him the script for Punisher Warzone. He was like, I'm out. Never mind. Go do the movie on your own. Like, that's how bad that second one was, where the actor was that dedicated. And when he got the script for it, he was like, never mind. I'm going to go do other movies.
Wow.
Yeah. So that second one was unwatchable. But anyway, the point of all this was that it's sad that we're not going to get a proper Hellboy movie ever. Although there were animated spin-offs. There were animated Hellboy movies where Ron Perlman voiced him. So I guess you could consider them sequels.
I think I've seen one of those.
Yeah, I think one's called like Blood and Fire or something like that. I don't really remember, but I only saw them like once. They obviously didn't make as much of an impression as the actual two live-action ones.
Guess not.
Yeah. But that's too bad. Maybe it'll get some sort of reboot, I guess, eventually.
It can happen. I mean, it seems like to be the year of reboots.
Every year is the year of reboots.
Yeah, well, I mean, like this year in particular, right? You remember that cartoon show? Maybe you don't. Hey Arnold. Did you ever see that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they're bringing it back for the final movie this year.
They're doing the same with Rocko's Modern Life.
Oh, really? Okay. So yeah, it's like all of these shows and movies that I guess we grew up with, they're starting to bring back, which is very odd.
It's kind of an interesting phenomenon with our generation. We're really into nostalgia, but the thing is, it's not like we're unique with that. It's just that we're unique in that we're the first generation where we had the internet. So everything we grew up on is what was the first things on the internet. So it's kind of like all just comes back full circle. So It's not like our parents didn't have nostalgia for like fucking Jackie Gleason and like the Honeymooners and stuff like that or whatever, but like by the time they were at the age range where they would have been like, yeah, I really want to see like the new adventures of the Honeymoon. I know that's kind of an extreme example, but like where they would be at the age where they would want to see something like that, it doesn't matter. Like there's no internet yet and there's no online community to that function. Whereas, I mean, I can't speak for you specifically, but I mean, when I was a kid, like you didn't have the internet. I really didn't use the internet until I was like 12.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, the internet, even with things like Windows 95, really trying to bring prominence to it later, right?
Yeah.
I still didn't really. I mean, when I first started using it, yeah, I was probably like 11, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
exactly.
It was one of those, my parents were very protective, so like, oh, only go to these sites. So really, I'd say I really didn't use the internet, as in the full internet, until I was, maybe 13, 14, 15.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. Because, like, back then, the most exciting thing I would ever go to was, like, NBA.com and just kind of see, like, how the Bulls were doing. Like, that's about that's about all you could do. Like, it was very limited. And then you had, like, that whole... I don't know if you ever had it, but, like, I had AOL. So I had, like, the full AOL package, with their browser and all that shit. But, yeah, that was very limiting in what you could do. But the point I'm laboring to make is that we were kind of the first generation that put all of our social interests online, and therefore we kind of are, at least temporarily, are still kind of the ones controlling it. And so when we were like, hey, remember when we grew up with in the early 90s, let's make that. Whereas like the kids younger than us will get there, but it's kind of different for them because a lot of what they liked is still active. Like SpongeBob SquarePants is still fucking active.
I can't believe that. It started in the 90s, late 90s.
I know.
But,
I know.
Ugh.
Family Guy is still active. The Simpsons is still active.
Yeah.
You see my point? Like, so a lot of the stuff that was kind of original from when we were around isn't anymore. And it's, I don't know, man. This has been interesting because it's not just TV. It's, movies are doing this. Like, everything is a reboot or a remaster, and it's all because of pre-established brands have more power. But I think it's more unique with us because we've kind of fertilized an environment where that is to be encouraged. The internet being like, hey, let's just put all our favorite things out there and we want them back. I don't know.
Yeah, it's easier to tell what would actually sell. Thanks to the internet.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's kind of hard to explain exactly what I'm saying, what I think about this, but there's definitely a connection with all of this. This nostalgia boom has something to do with the fact that we were the first generation to really get access to the internet and be able to express all our opinions.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something to that. So, with that said, hopefully Hellboy gets to that same phase, much like now Hey Arnold and Rocko's Modern Life are getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm. I'm still waiting for a reboot to actually get a reboot.
Oh, right, reboot the one that Mainframe did before they did Beast Wars.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's like the first large-scale 3D television show period, right?
Yeah, it was Canadian show made by Mainframe, very popular up there. They really like it.
Oh, it was popular here too.
Yeah, it was just bigger there. Like
yeah.
They'll know it more socially than we would in the States.
See, I've got it all on DVD, but of course, it's got a cliffhanger where you have like they had 3 episodes left that they just needed to make, and they didn't make them. It's like, no, why?
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, that's. I think it's because the show wasn't doing that well, and then eventually they moved on to Beast Wars, and they just used the Transformers license and stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know why it was dropped. Because I mean, it's like you have 3 episodes left. Surely you would have had those in production by then. But oh well.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I can only speak for what Beast Wars did because it's made by the same team. Like they had the similar situation happen with the end of that show where they had all these bigger episodes they wanted to do, and then whoever was in charge of distribution said, no, we're going to cut it from like 16 episodes down to like 13, and so you got to wrap this all up in like 1 episode. So like you read all these plot ideas they had, it's like, oh, no wonder the last episode's like really, really rushed.
Yeah.
So it happens.
I mean, at least they tried to have a conclusion. I remember like things like SWAT Cats didn't even get a conclusion. They had a recap episode as their last episode, which was sad.
That is sad.
It's like
here's everything we've done.
It's like, but what about like I don't know any kind of conclusion? It's like nope, we got canceled.
Yeah,
I love that show.
I'm sorry, man. That's kind of an interesting phenomenon too, because like that doesn't happen that much anymore. Like shows get canceled, obviously, but it seems like they're usually far enough along in production that they get a final episode now, or they're based on some pre-existing license that won't allow them to get, even when they're canceled, to get fully canceled. Like right. Star Wars Clone Wars, for example, was the last project done by Lucasfilm when they still had Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And so the 6th season of that, they had only finished 13 of like 20 planned episodes, but the last 7 of them were mostly done. So when Disney took over, they basically said, okay, These 13 episodes are mostly done. You can actually go ahead and finish them, but you might want to do some tweaking in case we don't let you go any further. And then they decided to let them take the last 7 and finish up all the audio work, but not the animation work. And then they allowed them to release those as well. So it's like, even something like it gets some sort of conclusion.
Yeah.
Whereas, what was that? SWAT Cats?
SWAT Cats, man.
I'd never even heard of that before. And it's like, you don't get brands like that anymore. You everything that's out now is some sort of 20 to 30-year-old base on it, it would seem. Yeah. Like, there's not too many original IPs anymore. Partially because our generation screwed that up for everybody.
Hooray, that can be our legacy.
Yeah. So yeah, and then like and it's weird. We also live in a generation where things can get canceled and it doesn't mean anything. Like, you look at Futurama, you're like, that was canceled 4 times.
Oh yeah,
4 times, and it's canceled currently. That doesn't mean anything. It's like, well, give it another year, it'll be back.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have the voice actors to reprise their roles.
Or like friggin' Curb Your Enthusiasm was canceled in like 2008. Like the year Obama was elected, and now he's like, yeah, I'm gonna make a new season. It's only been 10 years. I'll do another one. You're like,
so odd.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing that the momentum of our generation somehow did, where they can just bring old stuff back. I don't know. It's cool.
It is cool.
Yeah. So on that subject, this is kind of the perfect segue here. So our good buddy Kyle Vaughn. You might remember Kyle Vaughn.
Oh, yeah.
He was talking to me recently, and he had a subject in particular that he wanted to talk about, or wanted us to talk about, which was retro shows being brought to Blu-ray, how that works, and which ones we'd like to see. Now, first, I want to clarify exactly what that means. So, obviously, everybody knows what Blu-rays are, but like when you transfer old content to Blu-rays, that can be incredibly difficult, because it depends on how it was done. But if you take something like a film that was shot on 35 millimeter, whatever, all they have to do is take the original film and recapture it into with a new telecine device, capture it in a 4K scan, maybe run some cleaning on it, do some remastering, etc. But ultimately, you get a high definition print that you can put on Blu-ray. Not that big of a deal. But when you take something older, like generally stuff for television, and the best example ever is Star Trek: The Next Generation. Star Trek: The Next Generation was shot on 35 millimeter. But because they were airing it on, broadcast television in the 80s, even though they shot it on 35 millimeter, they would capture it. They would capture it to essentially a computer with a standard definition capture for 4:3 framed televisions. And once they had all that essentially digitally input into a computer, that's when they would do all of the editing and they would do all of the visual effects. So then that's the broadcast version, and then people go, okay, well, can you just take that and put it on a Blu-ray and make it high definition? No, you can't do that. What you have to do, like they did with Star Trek, was they went back to the 35 millimeter negatives shot back in the 80s, recapture them into a computer at 35 millimeter and widescreen. Then they have to completely re-edit the episodes as if all the original edits they ever did didn't matter, and then redo all the visual effects. And that's how they put Star Trek: The Next Generation on Blu-ray. 7 seasons of that show. Every single season of that show cost $110 million to make a Blu-ray out of.
Wow.
Each season. Not $110 million for all 7. $110 million per season.
Did they recoup that money?
Oh, God, no. They spent almost $800 million getting that show on Blu-ray. There's no way. Now, the point of it was not only to make money off the Blu-rays, but to be able to future-proof it better, for digital distribution. And it's Star Trek. It's something with like a big license where every time you put a new Star Trek movie out, you can sell catalog titles of stuff.
Oh, got it.
So it makes sense for something like that, but it's also the reason why you'll never see Deep Space Nine or Voyager likely ever get Blu-ray releases, at least not proper ones. Is because of that same process. Whereas at least TNG was big enough that in theory it can recoup that. Whereas the other two were just like spin-offs, even though my personal favorite was Deep Space Nine. So it's unlikely those would ever make that kind of money. So I'm just, the reason I'm explaining that, not to explain Star Trek specifically, but to explain how that process works. So with that in mind, what kind of shows do you think you would ever want to see, knowing full well that that's what it takes? And I should mention that with animation, it's a little different, because with animation, the guys to look at are Disney. They're the only ones who ever do this correctly. With animation, you have basically two ways to do it. You can go and take one of the original prints of the film, and the original print is in 35 millimeter, but odds are is not super clean. You can take that, you can put it into a telecine device, you can do a 4K scan, but it'll have all sorts of dirt and noise on it, and you can try to clean it up in a computer. And that's how something like Transformers the movie was transferred to Blu-ray. It looks good. It looks better. It's just not perfect. But something like Disney, they took Beauty and the Beast, and they just recaptured every single animated cell again. Every single frame. And then once they did that, they had a flawless, beautiful, clean print, which is why if you look at the like Beauty and the Beast Blu-ray, the animated one, not the Emma Watson one, you go, holy fucking shit. It like blows your mind how good it looks. So, but of course the difference is always money. So with that in mind, my friend, what shows from the 80s, 90s, whatever you grew up with, would you want to see on Blu-ray, and which of those do you think are actually possible?
Well, I actually don't know if some of these are already on Blu-ray. In terms of Disney, I liked the Aladdin TV series.
Oh, that'd be cool.
But maybe it's already on Blu-ray. I don't know.
No. There's very, very, very few shows that are on Blu-ray that weren't made for high definition to begin with. Like, going back to Star Trek again, Star Trek Enterprise was the only Star Trek show shot and then processed in high definition. Like, it was shot in high definition digital cameras, it was captured digitally, and all of its post-production work and editing work was done digitally in high definition. So when they wanted to make Blu-rays of it, no problem, you can just do it, because that's how the original source material is. But something like Hey Arnold, as we mentioned before, every aspect of that production work was done in standard definition. So you could have two ways of doing it. You could basically take the original broadcast tapes and try to clean them up a little bit and hope for slightly better results, but you're essentially getting blown up standard definition. Or you'd go back into the original source material and try to do it properly, but then you're talking about like $118 million to do a release, like Star Trek did.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of explaining the process, and it depends on the show. Like if something was shot on film, it wasn't like animated, it can be a lot easier. But if it's something that had visual effects, or especially stuff that's animated, really suffers from that. Like one of the things that killed the Simpsons Blu-ray releases was that they wanted to do the full proper thing like Star Trek was doing, but Fox didn't give them the money to do it. So they were basically just taking the episodes and just kind of blowing them up, cleaning them up a little bit. So when you got the Blu-rays of like the later seasons of The Simpsons, they all were like, you're like, it's really not that impressive looking. And it's because it wasn't shot in high definition. So the only one that was season 20. And that's why if you ever collect Simpsons Blu-rays, it jumps around. It goes from like 1 to 17, and then there's season 20 for some reason. But 18 and 19 aren't done. Because like around season 15, people were complaining that the Blu-rays didn't look good, so they jumped to the first season that was actually, the workflow was done in high definition, which was season 20. And they're like, see, it can look good. Now go buy more of the catalog titles. And then they never finished. Then they never finished it. I know I keep kind of going off on a tangent here, but like let's focus on shows you would want to see in high definition, and let's approach it from the fan point of view. Like, we're in your fantasy world, which one you would want. And then if you were suddenly the big captain of industry, the guy who runs one of these major studios, what show do you think you could actually do the full proper release of, and it would actually yield a profit?
I mean, fantasy, there are a lot of shows, like especially cartoon shows, that I'd love to see on Blu-ray, right, cleaned up. One that I really wish I could see, Robotech, was a Japanese anime from the 80s. That I think Harmony Gold or some company in the U.S. mutilated to bring it to the U.S. And I think they actually lost part of the animation they had been working with, so they had to basically make up new scenes for flashbacks or something. It's very weird. So that one especially would be challenging if they did indeed lose part of their original animation work. But having a Blu-ray, that would be amazing. Trying to think of what else. Obviously, Aladdin from Disney would be nice.
How about something like Hey Arnold or Rocko's Modern Life?
Hey Arnold would be good. I actually was never that big of a fan of Rocko's Modern Life.
Oh, dude, go back. I like rewatched that whole series
Yeah.
like 2 months ago. I'm not even kidding. That show holds up really well for something for kids. You wouldn't think it would, because it's for kids, that it would, but it was. It was more raunchy than I would say even something like Family Guy is. It's really weird that was ever aimed at children.
We had weird childhoods growing up. What can I say?
Yeah, that's why we're the fucking weirdest generation.
Yeah.
Because Ren and Stimpy and Rocko's Modern Life were our children's shows. Yet at the same time, we could have things like Power Rangers. It was weird.
And Bugs Bunny, with all the stereotypes it has thrown into it.
Yep.
And Tom and Jerry, all the violence people say that Tom and Jerry has.
Mm-hmm. Although those go way before our time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Let's see.
While you think a little bit, some of the ones I would want just out of the fan in me, not thinking about the money here. Beavis and Butthead, I would want a full thing of, minus this is always, people hate me for this, but the music videos, I hate music videos. I was always annoyed when they aired those in the middle of that show, and I always wanted them cut out and removed. And then when they did the DVD releases, they had to get rid of them for licensing reasons. I was thrilled. But I want to see like proper Blu-ray releases minus the music videos. That would be great. And I would actually, as I mentioned it, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers would be fun to see in high definition, although that would never work. Because like a lot of that, the Power Rangers themselves, that footage was shot in like the mid 80s for Japanese television. Like there's no way that's going to clean up. But that's all fantasy. Actual shows that might actually turn a profit if they were properly transferred, I don't know. Maybe like the early seasons of Smallville. They didn't start doing high definition releases until the 5th season. For whatever reason, got a DVD and HD DVD release, but no Blu-ray. But then season 6 onward got Blu-rays. So I'm thinking you could at least do season 5 on Blu-ray. I don't know about the first 4. I don't know. It's such a tough call because you got to imagine. See, I didn't know that Star Trek was that expensive originally to do that much restoration to. So when you think about how expensive that is, that must be a bitch. Maybe something like South Park could properly restore it. There's a lot of seasons of South Park that were actually made in high definition but never released that way for whatever reason.
Yeah, I to be honest, I don't think any of the shows I would want to see on Blu-ray are realistic at this point.
Yeah. And yeah, I keep thinking about like some of the Seinfeld would be good. Seinfeld has been remastered in high definition for broadcast and for like Hulu, but why it hasn't had a Blu-ray release yet, I have no idea. That would, all right, so if I'm a businessman, I'm running NBC, that's my pick. Seinfeld. Seinfeld would definitely make its money back on Blu-ray.
There you go.
And also, I want to thank Kyle because he pointed something really odd to me. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Chip, but I took Back to the Future, the game. Did you ever play that game?
No.
It's a game by Telltale. It's kind of like the unofficial 4th movie. I took that game and I edited it into 2 films, Back to the Future 4 and 5. You can watch them on my channel. And they did pretty well on YouTube, whatever. And the whole reason he and I were talking about this specific subject a little bit was that he was looking into some TV shows and stuff and wanting to get DVDs and Blu-rays of all these things. And he had a lot of interest in getting Back to the Future, the animated series, which apparently got a Blu-ray release in Germany only, as odd as that is. And he found out, there's this other Back to the Future 4 and this Back to the Future 5. What the hell is that? Long story short, there's a guy selling pirated copies of the things I edited on eBay.
Really?
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, I had no idea you were so instrumental in getting those out there. I'm like, I had no idea either. I had nothing to do with this pirated copy bullshit.
Huh.
But so when I first heard that, there was like, I had like 2 reactions. I was like half flattered and half like pissed off. But it's like, I don't own it, so it's not like I really have a right to say anything.
Right.
But it's like, it's kind of weird there's some guy out there making pirated copies of that, but at the same time it's flattering that they're like, these are good enough to have pirated copies. So
yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Adam's famous.
No, I'm just a guy who cut something together, and they probably, each one of those starts off with a scene of me kind of explaining what it was, because it's just kind of an odd thing to have put on this channel in particular, and I can't help but wonder if they left that in or just completely cut it out. So
who knows? You have to buy one to find out.
I will not do that. But you can buy it on DVD or Blu-ray, apparently. But I recommend just watching it on YouTube for free, because that's where I put it. There you go. Anyway, any other thoughts, Chip?
No, I think that'll do it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching this. It's been fun doing yet another podcast with you. Again, Patreon backers, you guys get this right after we record it. I edit it, post it, and then near the end of the month, it goes public. So if you're interested in getting this or early access to other videos that I do, you can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Adam Koralik. Once again, thank you, Chip, for being my co-star. Thank you to Kyle, Corey, and Colin. And thank you guys for watching.
Bye.
Bye.